Hey everybody, today I'd like to answer to Josh who was asking, well, what's actually the right sitting height? And the answer is more tricky than 90 degrees in your knees. I'd like to show you why. Well, as always in posture therapy, what we like to do is go one extreme, see what it does, go the other extreme, see what it does, and from the observation of the two, find the middle. So I'll sit obviously too high. And what I observe is that if I sit too high, is that my heels are off the ground, yeah? And therefore what I'll do is shift forward in the chair until my heels are back on the floor, and by then nothing prevents me from slouching because I'm gone from the backrest. Okay? Now let's sit too low. Well, with this chair, it's difficult to sit really too low, visibly enough, because it doesn't go very low. So to simulate sitting too low, I will raise one knee. So you see, when you sit too low, you're like this. And what you can feel is actually that the hip angle is very closed, and therefore you feel pressure in your hip joint. And this is uncomfortable. Therefore, the effect will be that you reopen the hip joint by shifting your pelvis backwards. And this tilting your pelvis backwards, sorry. And this will round your back, your lower back, plus, you see, it pulls you away from your keyboard and your screen, hence you have to stretch your arms forward to reach your keyboard, which is a source of neck and shoulder strain. So how do I find the right height? Well, I start too high at the back of my chair, and I go down until I feel that my feet, that my heels are firmly on the ground. And when my feet are firmly on the ground, well, this is, say, the highest allowable sitting height. And I can go down a bit more, and when I start feeling pressure in my hip, well, this is the low limit. I should not go below this. And everything in between the two is allowed. It's just a matter of comfort. Is this 90 degrees in the knees? Well, maybe. But, there are two conditions for that. One is that your heels are right under your knees. Two is that you take the angle between the bones, i.e. the tibialis, the lower leg, and the femur bone. Yeah? So what is important is to understand that knee angle is just something we observe, but what we care about is hip joint angle and pressure under your heels. That's point number one. Point number two that we should care about is that this story of 90 degrees is simply due to the fact that, this seat pan is horizontal. Okay? So if the seat pan is too high, well, it takes my whole thighs with it and takes off my heels from the ground. But there are other chairs, like the one that you can see here, the Capisco. And the Capisco has a much shorter seat pan, so what happens is actually instead of lifting your heels from the floor, when you sit higher than 90 degrees on the Capisco, well, the lower leg to upper leg angle changes, but you keep your heels on the floor. So actually I do sometimes recommend the Capisco to people who have pain in their hip joint and who need to change sitting height very often. So you see, the 90 degrees in your knees is not an absolute rule. The absolute rule is that you should have your hip joint comfortable, i.e. more than 90 degrees, round, and that your heels should be firmly on the floor so that there is pressure to throw you against the backrest where you will get pelvic stability. Okay? So 90 degrees is not an absolute rule. What you care about is pressure here, comfort here. On these chairs, that comes to an angle around 90 degrees. On other chairs, bigger angles are allowed. What's rarely allowed, never allowed so to say, is angles less than 90 degrees, because this will always compress your hip joint. If you like that, I'll link at the end of this video another video on how to fine-tune your sitting posture, and you can find tons of details and explanations like this to run away from dogmas in the posture manual or in the online posture programs. It's super important that you don't believe things just because people tell them, but that you understand and feel what happens, that you get to really a good understanding and a good grip of the biomechanics so that you are autonomous in the decisions that you take. This is my job. My job is to make you autonomous, and it's a great pride if I can help you.